Here's 3 things that surprised me about being a hospital doctor. Let's go. What's up, everyone? Mike Muellner here. I'm an internal medicine doctor from Los Angeles, California, currently working as a hospitalist. Now, here's 3 things that surprised me about this job when I first started. Number 1, much of the work is behind the scenes. So before I got into this profession, I had this idea of a doctor as somebody who's at the patient's bedside all day long, 99% of the time with this thing in my ears, right? But, that's just not the case. Usually in the morning, I'll spend the first couple hours doing a chart review in the office, and then I'll spend typically about 2 hours going room to room, seeing all the patients where I very much am that guy bedside with this thing in my ears, listening to heart and lungs. But the rest of the day is spent more behind the scenes, looking up or following up on test results on the computer, making phone calls with specialists, also with case managers, trying to arrange transfer to and from the hospital to nursing homes, for example. And then there's a lot of paperwork that needs to get done. So a lot of behind the scenes work. Now, that being said, whenever there's an emergency, there's a reason why I stay in the hospital and can't do this job remotely, because for any emergencies, I'll run right back to the patient's bedside where I can evaluate them in person. So I do spend a considerable amount of time doing very hands-on medicine in the patient's room, but it's not all day long. It's a little different from the movies and TV shows, which I don't blame them. It'd be pretty boring if you were to have a TV show that revolved around a bunch of people sitting in an office. So that was surprising to me. It's a little different from what I thought the profession would be like. Number 2, it takes a village to take care of patients. So before I got involved in this career, I kind of thought it was just the doctor and the nurse who share responsibility for a patient. But there's actually a whole lot more than that. You got all the therapists, physical therapists, occupational therapists, respiratory therapists, speech therapists. Then there's nutritionists, social workers. So a whole big team of people who work together to ensure that every patient gets the best care possible. And I didn't even mention what I consider to be one of the MVPs of the hospital, which is the case manager. So this is a specialized nurse who deals with facilitating things like discharges, making sure that patients have all the equipment they need at home before going home. So things like oxygen or maybe a hospital bed that has to be delivered to home. They also help to coordinate transfer to and from hospitals. So if you need to transfer somebody to a hospital, let's say for a higher level of care, maybe they need an organ transplant or something that's very specialized, the case manager can facilitate that. And they also work with nursing homes to make sure that we can smoothly transition care from a hospital to a nursing home. And so they can really make miracles happen. You get people who are stuck in the hospital for a month, 2 months, there's no place to go. There's just no way to care for them outside the hospital. The case managers can make it happen. So definitely, it takes a whole team to take care of patients. And that's something that I just didn't have any exposure to before I started working in this profession. And finally, number 3, doctors don't always have the answer. So this is something that I had to learn the hard way throughout my medical training. So when I think back to when I was a medical student, I really looked up to the first-year resident, the intern. I thought, man, this is somebody who's got an MD after their name. They're just so smart. They have all the answers. They know just what to do in any given situation. Then I finished med school and I became the intern. I felt like I didn't know anything. And, I was very easily stumped. I always had to go to my senior residents for advice. And so, it was a far cry from that confident, all-knowing, omnipotent person that I thought I'd be as an intern doctor. But then I thought, once I get my medical license, once you finish your intern year, become a senior resident, then you know everything. Then you have all the answers. Well, spoiler alert, that wasn't the case. I still felt, although I felt a lot more confident and I felt definitely able to manage most of the issues that arise in the hospital setting, there are still times when I had to talk to my attending physician, so the board certified attending, to try to figure out the best plan of care for treatment of patients, oftentimes when there's a gray area, when the right thing to do is not clear. But then I thought, obviously once I become board certified, once I take that test and I get the plaque on my wall, then I'm going to have all the answers all the time, no problem. But obviously nothing really changes as far as your skill and confidence level when you go from being a resident one week to being an attending physician the next week. And so I discovered firsthand that even once you complete training, you still don't have all the answers. But I think that's, in a way, kind of a good thing, because when you know your limitations, when you know when to ask for help, when to refer back to the literature, looking at research studies or professional guidelines, practice guidelines, or get in touch with specialists with questions, I think that is a very good skill to have, to know your limitations, because the fact is nobody knows everything. And I think if somebody thinks that he or she knows everything, that's going to be a problem, because I think that's impossible. Anyway, those are 3 things that surprised me about this job as a hospital medicine doctor. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like medical content like this, feel free to hit the subscribe button there. Check out another video here, and I'll catch you guys next time.